wherever you are. Today we are talking of a different thing altogether. We are talking of a course or classes that we are offering here at Allsmiles Therapy Center, and that is basic psychology and mental health, life skills and awareness classes. So this has come as a need because most of our clients, they keep on asking, I would like to know more about mental health. What can I do to ensure that I get to learn more and I gain more knowledge about mental health? But let me put it this way, mental health is a broad area, and we can't, cover everything, not unless you want to take an academic course on mental health. However, as Allsmiles Therapy Center, we've looked at most of the things that affect people, and so we've come up with these basic classes. It's all about creating awareness out there and enlightening members out there to get to know much more about mental health. And this happens and it helps in a way that you will be able to know when you are more aware. You are able to tell when things are not okay. You are able to be more alert and tell when things are not working the way they should be. You will also be learning about different things on mental health, how they affect one's life and also the surrounding. And also if left, not taken care of, how it can be even more like an illness, a mental illness. So we are talking about much. It's a broad about the basic mental health that you and the other person and myself, we need to know. So one thing I would say is you taking up this course does not make you a psychologist, neither does it make you a therapist. However, it gives you more knowledge on being aware, and it gives you that you are more step ahead than everyone else when it comes to matters mental health. Why? Because you are able to identify, even on oneself, you're able to tell, I feel the way I am today, I'm not okay. I feel if I continue like this, this might end up being a mental issue. So, and you're also able to tell when things are not working well. I keep on referring on scenario where we've seen people type rest in peace, out there on social media, rest in peace. But when you look at it, people are able to add the dots backward and say, we saw it coming. This person was avoidant, they were withdrawing from people, they were keeping for themselves and all that. And so when you are more aware and when you've taken up this basic knowledge about mental health and psychology, you'll be able to identify that, and you'll be able to be, to be a helper out there and to tell someone, hey, I feel the way you are, you're not okay, and the best thing is to go out there and seek help from a professional. So it's all about mental health, the day-to-day things, and the much knowledge that we need to know. So this should reach out to parents out there. You are also candidates for this course so that you can get to know more about parenting styles, more about being in marriage, and more about, how to take care of our kids at different levels, because the way you are parenting 0 to 8 years is very different with the way you parent preteen, teens, young adults and all that. It's also a course for you as a parent and guardian that you should take it up for your young adults, because they also need to learn some of these things. I'll tell you for sure, if let's say university students, they are college students, they are able to learn about drugs and substance. This is something that will help them in what we call prevention is better than cure, because they'll be able to know the importance of not indulging in such and the effect, and they will avoid it. Also, we are looking at professionals, people who are out there. We are looking at managers in corporate world. We are also looking at human resource, because in most cases we deal with employees, and in many times we do, I would say, crucify them for things that are mental related. When we talk about employees' performance, we take time to get to know they are not performing because they are suffering. They're not performing because this particular employee is going through divorce, this particular employee is struggling with drugs, this particular employee has gone through loss and grief. We take time to be able to identify that, or we are just very fast into saying your performance is one thing, and we even end up terminating them. So it's I would say an all-round course where each and every person need. This is general knowledge that we all need. We learn about so much things, and we will be discussing much more about the course with our therapist here, and I'm sure you'll be able, to enjoy, to get to know more about it, and also call to enroll. So this course will be offered in 4 modules, and I will begin with module 1. Module 1 is where we're looking at basic psychology and matter psychology, and so we'll have introduction to psychology. Here we will be talking about what is psychology, what do you know, your understanding about psychology and mental health. So it will be something bringing you more closer to what a therapist or a psychologist, goes through in our training. However, as I have said, this will just be able to guide you, and even for the teachers, you are also eligible to enroll, because we understand most teachers out there, they take up the role of being, a guidance and counseling teacher, but do take up courses to ensure that you are more enlightened and you are able to offer the help. So it's more of letting you know what we are offering and what is out there in the world of psychology and mental health to be of benefit to you and to yourself. So I will be inviting my fellow therapists so that we are able to bring more light into what we are offering. Thank you. Here we are with all our therapists, and we are ready to tell you more about this training. So Sylvia, can tell us more about PTSD.
Delving deeper on what PTSD is, it mainly stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. And somebody may wonder, what is all that? This is a mental health condition that is triggered normally by events. Either somebody experiences them or they get to witness them. And what are some of these events? A death. You could also be in an accident that the flashbacks keep haunting you. Also, observing somebody being physically or emotionally abused in your home, or even at school, or even in your work area. Some of the symptoms that PTSD comes with is constant flashbacks, that you're not able to get these images out of your head. Sometimes nightmares, you're not able to sleep because you've got these scenes that keep coming up. Anxiety, not being sure about yourself, and also a constant fear of being alone. And as well as uncomfortable thoughts that come with what you witnessed. And mainly what drives PTSD, not only is it anxiety, but fear. The fear of re-experiencing, the fear of being in the same spot as you were the last time.
Another issue is insomnia, and insomnia is basically the persistent problem of sleeping, whereby one is unable to sleep, to begin sleeping, or even inability to stay asleep the whole night. And sometimes one wakes up at the middle of the night and he cannot be able to sleep again. Sometimes waking up very early. If you used to wake up at 5 a.m., you wake up at 2 a.m. and you cannot be able to sleep again. So this is insomnia. It's a serious issue because it goes back to, it interferes. It can interfere in the way you do things. Like when you don't sleep the whole night, you are not able to work well. You are not able to deal with some problems, maybe in the working place, in the family. So it becomes a big issue in the mind. And how do you know that you have insomnia? You know you have insomnia when you just wake up, you find yourself waking up at night for no reason, and you cannot be able to sleep again. And like I said again about waking up early, and at times when you want to sleep, like you want to take a nap during the afternoon after lunch, you cannot be able to sleep. So this could also lead to insomnia. And insomnia it can be triggered by several things, like maybe mental illness. If you have some mental illness, things like depression, one is sometimes unable to get to sleep. sometimes the work environment, when you're working in an environment whereby there are night shifts and it is prolonged, so it interferes with the sleeping patterns, and so you find it interfering with the way you sleep. And also anxiety also is an issue that causes sleeping disruptions, and also pain, like when somebody is sick, so during the night you are not able to sleep because of the pains. And also some medications. If you are taking some medication, they also prevent you from sleeping, and it also basically amounts to insomnia.
In addition to the above, I think stress is also one of the key things that causes insomnia, and to a greater extent, because when you're stressed out, your nervous system and your body is dysregulated. So you find that you're not able to sleep well. We have students as well experiencing that, both at school and at home. Also, our young children, depending on what they've also been through. So that's also part of insomnia.
Yeah, another issue I'm going to be discussing is anxiety. And anxiety is the excessive feeling of worry, nervousness, and news about situations where one is not aware, where the outcome is not very certain. For instance, when somebody is waiting for maybe a medical report from a doctor, that force that is building from within, those expectations, the discomfort, when somebody is preparing a presentation, and some challenging role that is ahead, it brings anxiety. And one may ask, why deal with anxiety? We deal with anxiety because sometimes when it is intense, it interferes with our normal way of doing things, and so it becomes an issue of concern. And that's why we are inviting you for our training, because it's going to help you to deal with it. That you may also become a person who can be able to be a helper to other people going through anxiety. And how do you know that you have anxiety, or you're suffering from anxiety? When you have that excessive worry, restlessness, fatigue, you have problems in concentrating, and you have sleeping problems. Such things, they are signals to show that you could be suffering from anxiety. And then another issue is anger. Anger is a major issue in our society today, emerging from the family, from the working environment, whereby it's an emotion. It's a show of emotion for dislike towards somebody or someone, or maybe a situation. And when somebody feels threatened, so it's like a reaction. So anger is a reaction, and so many people have landed into problems as a result of anger. And that's why at Allsmiles we really inviting you to come to this training, so that we may help you out to deal with anger. Yeah, because sometimes people have cut themselves off from the families, from the working environment because of anger. And unless one is made aware of the posing dangers of having that anger that he or she is not being able to control, unless somebody is made aware, and there are efforts to make sure that he or she is able to deal with the issues, it can become a problem, a society problem, which can lead up into the family and so many other things.
Well, you get to see we have a lot that once you enroll, you are going to learn from the team. And yeah, that's not all. What else will they be learning?
Yes, we will also be learning about stress. I want to believe that this will not be a new word to most of us, but really we'll get to understand really what is stress. And stress is that physical, that intense feeling that one gets from a particular strain. This feeling would affect somebody physically, it will affect them emotionally, it will also affect them psychologically. So stress It is common and affects people from all walks of life, from the rich, from the poor, from the young, from the old. So we are inviting you to come and learn with us about stress. And when we talk about stress, we look at a number of things. I will get to understand really what is stress, how can one know that they are stressed. We'll also look at the signs. How can I tell, or how can somebody tell that indeed they are stressed? We look at the causes. There are many causes that make one get stressed, but we'll also help one to look at the interventions. What are those things that one will do to deal with stress? We look at the responses. How can one respond to their own stress or the stress of those around them? So we do also look at building community of support. When one is stressed, they'll need to have a community of support around them. So among many other areas that we'll be covering as far as stress is concerned. Apart from stress, we also look at depression. We interchange. We find many people interchange the two words. Yeah, they are different, but I need to mention that stress and depression have a very high correlation. Research has been done actually that shows that stress and depression are interchanged and one could take the place of the other. But when you talk about depression, this is a more serious medical condition. It's actually a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness or loss of interest. So unlike stress, depression is more intense. It's a medical condition, and what it does is that it helps, or it does make somebody really persistently feel sad. It makes somebody lose interest in the things that they liked to do before. It interferes with how somebody feels, how they think, how they behave, and this is what results into the mood disorder that we have talked about. So that's what depression is. So we again are inviting you to come and learn more about depression. What we will look at again will be understanding further what is depression. We look at who are predisposed to depression. We look at the signs that we need to look out for in ourselves and the people around us to find out if they could be depressed. We look again at the remedies that one would take if they're depressed or the people around them are depressed. And in adding to that, we are aware that again, even in our country, suicide has been and has become really prevalent. Researchers have found that depression and suicide have very high correlation. This study that I mentioned that has been done actually identifies that over 90% of people with depressive symptoms will be prone to suicide. So we want to understand really what is suicide ideation, and now just briefly help us understand. When we hear about suicide, people think about death, but it's not necessarily death. Suicide is a form of communication, so we are inviting you to help us understand what really suicide is. It's a communication that something is not right, that someone has a challenge, that someone has a problem. And usually suicide will entail use of an impaired problem-solving skill. So we are inviting you to understand what is really suicide. And in addition to that, we look at suicide ideation. We've heard about this, and then these are ideas, someone toying with the ideas of dying, the ideas of death, the ideas or even plan laid out on how they're going to die, and this persistent feeling, very strong thought about how they're going to die. So we're inviting you to come and learn with us to understand all these mental health issues that are around us. And a psychologist by name Dr. Norm Spencer mentioned, and he said that, I quote, "Mental health is not a destination, but a process." So we are inviting you to come to Allsmiles, to join us, to train, even as we walk with you through the journey. Your mental health is our priority. You're welcome to train with us.
I think maybe just jumping in a little bit in terms of ideation. Why do we want to talk about ideation? If you look, a big chunk of our children today have video games or areas that tell them the different ways they can kill themselves. So it starts off as a game, but at the end of the day, when our children are in their teenage years, when in their early adult years, when things are not working out for them, then this becomes something that they really are toying with. And it's a big thing, especially in Kenya today in high schools. So one of the things that suicide ideation and suicide in Kenya is really growing in leaps and bounds. So come, learn with us. These are things that are really having a big impact in our society. It is wise and it is nice to know how to go about them and different ways from what we've learned in the old. Karibu.
Wow, we'll also be learning more about childhood traumas. Yeah, so we can get to know what we'll be expecting to know more about childhood and the difficulties that comes with the traumas.
Childhood trauma is something that most people are learning and are becoming aware of slowly, especially in Kenya. Why childhood in particular? Maybe we can begin by defining what is trauma. And trauma is an emotional response to a deeply distressing and disturbing event. Why childhood? Because it starts right from the womb. As a mother is expectant with a child, their feelings that they go through, their emotions that they go through, maybe the pregnancy wasn't something they wanted, all that the mother carries and embodies with them is also felt by the child. And how does childhood trauma affect us? Throughout our life, we always have the inner child in us who will give us confidence, who will give us our self-esteem, who will give us our role and our place in society. And childhood trauma is something that we cannot run away from. Erickson talks about trust and mistrust, and that is basic needs of a child being met. Feeding, change of diaper, at the right time they need to go to learn how to potty train, then they need to go to school. When all that is not mitigated well, we end up with a child who is neglected. Child negligence. Today we have children who give birth to children and they leave them to their parents and they're off. That child suffers rejection. Physical abuse. We have nannies. We are off to work. Thank God for the cameras. But not all of us can afford cameras to see what is really happening at home. So your child could be subject to physical abuse, emotional abuse, which is even worse, sexual abuse, and even a natural trauma, like a flooding. Think of the people in Budalangi. They woke up and their home was flooded and they lost a home. Of clashes, people lost a home. The scenes that they saw when they were young children, like there are people with scars of 2007. So childhood trauma is something that really affects our inner child. And when our inner child is crushed, the adult in us cannot grow. Ever seen men who will still always go back to a same spot? If you don't do things in this particular way, they cringe. It's not because they want. It is the safe spot that has been moved. And in a way they don't know how to relate and they can only act by being rigid or being aggressive. And in Kenya in particular, this is a topic we want to address because we want us to be able to understand where the mental disconnect is happening so that we can also mitigate it right from childhood. And I forgot to mention that even in school, our children experience trauma. When a teacher is busy telling a child they're foolish and they can't read, that is trauma in itself, and it speaks throughout their life. So as you come in, you will have so much more to learn in terms of childhood trauma, and you'll also get to discover that you also have some of your hidden traumas, and that you too will also have a way to heal the inner child who probably you've never met and had a time to say hello to. So welcome to Allsmiles for our first module.
Yeah, now you get to learn that module 1, and it got so much that will be of help to you and your loved ones out there. And we keep on saying, in one way or the other, where you're not a victim, you are affected. Hence, it's you, and maybe you know someone else who still requires this course. So kindly refer them to us and reach out to us. We shall be of help. So this is all that module 1 entails. And so we move next to module 2 so that we can get to know what is it that we'll be learning in our module 2. Oh, and here we are again talking about module 2 so that we get to know what you're going to learn when you enroll in our training. So yeah, still continuing with our very amazing therapists. As I told you at the beginning, we are a number and we are so many of us. So yeah, you're welcome, get to listen and get to hear. And as we say, you don't have to follow any order. You can see the module that is more attracting to you, that speaks words to you currently, and you can choose the one to go for. So yeah, we can start with drugs and substance use.
So one of the first things that we look at in the second module is actually the effects of drugs and substance use on the entire individual, their lives, and things like that. So majority of the people actually do know, some of the physiological effects of drugs, and we also tend to discuss a lot of the psychological effects of drugs, such as paranoia, psychosis, things like that as well. And of course, there are the physical aspects that we look at, which is, how does it affect your health physiologically, what drugs do what to the body, and things like that. The other thing that we would also like to cover in this module is the different classes of drugs. Because drugs can be categorized into illegal substances, which everybody of course knows about, everybody's sort of familiar with. And then there are the slightly more legal substances that people can also get addicted to. There's things like alcohol, there's things like nicotine. And these things can prove to be a problem in a person's day-to-day life if consumption is out of control. The other thing that we do also look at is the other lesser known effects of drugs, such as what is the economic effect of certain drugs, what is the relational effect of these drugs, how does it affect the family structure around this person as well. So we also look at things such as relational therapy and how, relational aspects and how this substance use, addictions and things like that also affect, the family structure around the individual as well. There's that. There's also the aspect of how it affects somebody's ability to work, somebody's ability to think straight and things like that. It's difficult to categorize all of it because different substances have different effects on different individuals as well. Drugs can be classified into their own categories such as uppers, downers, psychedelics, and they all have their own set of effects. So to explore this and to know more about these things and how they affect an individual's life, join us at Allsmiles Therapy Center for our modules. So now that we've informed you a little bit about what's going to be in that beginning of the effects of drugs and substance abuse, I would like to hand over to my colleague Bella here, who can give you her module.
We'll also be looking at addiction. In this case, we'll be looking at prevention and dealing with addictions, may it be sex, drugs, food, gambling, etc. And addiction is one of the impulse control disorder. We find that someone addicted has this irresistible urge to whatever it is they're addicted to. And for compulsive addicts, whether in gambling or sex and those others that I've mentioned, they cannot control the impulse. that they do whatever it is that they're addicted to, even when it has negative consequences to them or to their loved ones. They have to do it. And we'll be looking at addiction, that is how to deal with it, how to help our loved ones, those that are dealing with addictions, and how to prevent one from oneself or even those close to us from being addicted. And in this case, there's need to learn about addiction, because it will help not only us, but those around us, our neighbors, our loved ones, and yes, we'll be offering this at Allsmiles Therapy Center. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Thank you, Bella. We have several other topics in Module 2, and I would like to introduce my colleague here, Naomi, who will take you through topic number 3. Thank you, Krishi. And yes, in Module 2, we have a module titled Rape, Rejection and Abuse. And as we all know, rape is a criminal offense that can affect both adults and children. And rape is actually, if you think about it for a little bit, rape is actually a form of abuse, and also rejection is a form of abuse. When you're talking about rape as a form of abuse, there's so many other subheadings within which rape as a criminal offense can be broken down into, because it has a physical expression of violence and it has an emotional dimension of violence. Some of you may have heard of gender-based violence, some of you may have heard of intimate partner violence. So at Allsmiles Therapy Center, when you sign up to join our rape, rejection and abuse model, these are some of the things that we sensitize you on. Before I go any further, I just want to mention a little bit the reality that we are facing as a nation, and maybe even as a globe, where rape takes place and there's a lot of secrecy about it. So it doesn't matter which side of the secrecy you're on, which side. Maybe you're keeping it a secret and you've been raped, or maybe you know somebody else that is being raped and it's a secret. When you come to Allsmiles Therapy Center, we are able to work with you and get to a solution. So it's important when you're looking at the topic of rape, rejection and abuse, to look at what happens to the victims of rape. Because oftentimes you find that the focus after the rape incident has occurred, the focus is on the offender. So yet the victim has so much more to deal with outside of trauma. So just to name some of the symptoms that can maybe, that will preempt a little bit of what we'll be looking at when you sign up for this course, is something like self-cutting is a symptom that is associated with victims of rape. Hair pulling, bulimia nervosa. Most of you know what bulimia is. It is an eating disorder, but you find that victims of rape will eat to soothe their pain and eat when they are not hungry. You have things like OCD, which is the obsessive compulsive disorder. And this is quite an important one to focus on, and we shall be spending time on it. And just to give you an example, because OCD is a very popular topic, and you often hear some people even openly saying, I'm OCD. And some people might think it's a good thing, but if at the bottom of it is a history of rape, whether the rape is reflecting on your conscious mind or your unconscious mind, or to somebody that you know, then at the Allsmiles Therapy Center we are able to help you. The last effect of rape, rejection and abuse that we will be covering within the module is the extent to which once a person has been a victim of rape, the chances that if they are young, they will develop an opposite sexual orientation. And this is where the same-sex relationships come in. And the time has come for us as a society to start understanding one another and maybe position ourselves to better help one another, because you might be dealing with a victim of rape or rejection. So during the training sessions, not only are we going to help you find ways and means of turning a new leaf in your life or in the life of somebody that you love and care for, but we're also going to try and answer or help you answer some difficult questions, because we all know that when you have been a victim of rape, rejection, or any other kind of abuse, you'll ask yourself, why me? Yeah? Was there something wrong that I did? Is there something wrong with me that my parents are rejecting me? Is it my fault? Will I ever overcome the pain? How do I deal with the flashbacks that remind me constantly that I was raped? Yeah, and what happens if I cannot forgive my offender? So these are some of the modules that we are going to cover. So I'm calling upon all viewers to quickly enroll. It doesn't matter if you're the victim, if you're the offender, or maybe you're the one who knows somebody who needs help from intimate partner violence. And all these are terms that will go through the training. You'll be able to understand clearly, and you'll be empowered to help yourself or help the next person who needs help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naomi. That's a very, very interesting topic, and I think it's a very relevant topic in today's society as well. It's important to remember that it's not just women who get raped, it's not just women and children. It happens to men as well, you know, although we don't talk about it as much in our society. So these are some of the things, heavy things, that we will be discussing in this module. So yes, definitely do join us if you are interested, and if you would like to know, or if you would like to find a way to, or know somebody that you would benefit from this, also do spread the word. Next, I would like to hand over to Sheila.
Thank you, Trishi. And I'd just like to say that the topic I'll be handling will be how to overcome stigma, fear, and self-esteem. Actually, when you listened to my colleagues in Module 2, all the topics they have handled will actually sometimes give you stigma. And stigma is actually just how someone views you in a negative way because you have a distinguishing characteristic or a personal trait. And that's what I will be handling. And this stigma can be because you have actually had a drug abuse and you feel that people view you in a certain manner. And so it creates in you fear, it creates in you, gives you a low self-esteem, you don't value yourself, and that is what we're going to try and actually bring you to a safe place as you come to Allsmiles. And some of the things that we are going to be talking about is how you will not equate yourself to, let's say if you have an illness, out of the stigma is coming out of illness, you will not equate your illness to stigma. Yes. You will not equate your illness to being a drug abuser. We are going to help you even get help in any other way. We'll even get you some places where you can have help, like if it's a support group, if it is how you can actually speak out against the stigma. We can even get others who are like you, and you form a support group and you help each other walk this walk. So actually we are also going to make you aware what is really stigma, what stigma is, and even the symptoms that it actually relays. Things like reduced or low self-esteem, like we have said, that it brings about that. Increased psychotic symptoms and difficulties with social relationships. You find somebody actually just isolating themselves and not even all of a sudden the things they enjoyed doing, they can't do them anymore. They have difficulties at work and you keep on wondering, what's wrong with this person? And can you imagine that is just stigma, and which can be done. So at Allsmiles, we can do this for you. Come and let us make you better.
It's important that you actually mention stigma, because majority of the things that we have discussed in Module 2 actually do have a lot of stigma surrounding them. You know, whether it's sexual assault victims, whether it's addicts, you know, whether it's prevention and dealing with addictions, even other addictions such as, you know, sex, food, Netflix. Some people are addicted to Netflix as well, you know. But it is very important that you say that, because the reason that we're offering these modules is because we believe as therapists as well that the first step to actually making a change or to actually, you know, even addressing these topics in the general public is psychoeducation. And that is why we are offering these modules. They're educative modules. You can come and see for yourselves what they're all about. And definitely hit us up either on social media or on our emails or on our phone numbers, either or, and find out what they're more about. Thank you.